We're going to be talking about how to find percentages from real-world situations. So in this example, we see that April sold 13 out of 50 bags of popcorn at work. What percentage of bags were sold by April? So my first step that I want to take is to compare the part over the whole. And what this ratio represents is the total or the whole amount of bags that were at work, which is 50, and the part of the bags that April sold, which is 13. Now I have a ratio of 13 to 50, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to divide these two numbers. I'm going to divide 13 by 50. And what I'm going to do is add a decimal, and we've learned from our decimal chapters that if we continue adding zeros after our decimal, it doesn't necessarily change the value of our number. So we're going to leave it like this, and you'll see why in just a moment. Now I know that 50 cannot go into 1. 50 can also not go into 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 0, because I know that 50 cannot go into 13. And I'm also going to add a decimal. I'm going to bring up this decimal that I have. And I can see that 50 can go into 130, and 50 can do this twice. I know that 50 times 2 gives me a product of 100. And once I subtract these two, I see that I have a remainder of 30. Now, I know that 50 cannot go into 30, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these zeros that I added, I'm going to drop it down, and I'm going to change this 30 into a 300. And now I can see that 50 can go into 300 exactly 6 times. 50 times 6 is 300, and I no longer have a remainder. My remainder is 0. So I know that 13 divided by 50 is 26 hundredths. So I see that 13 over 50 is equivalent to 26 hundredths. And my next step is to move my decimal over to the hundredth spot. So I know originally that I have 26 hundredths. That is my quotient, the answer to my division problem. And I know that a percent is a fraction that is out of 100. I see that I have 26 hundredths, so I'm going to move my decimal behind my hundredths place. So I usually do that by moving my decimal 2 times over. And so I see that this decimal of 26 hundredths is equivalent to 26%. So I know that April sold 13 out of 50 bags, so this also means that she sold 26% of the bags at work. Let's go through one more example. Jeremiah made 17 out of 20 penalty shots. What percentage of shots did he make? So from the last example, we should know our first step is to compare part over the whole. And right here, we see that Jeremiah made 17 out of the 20 penalty shots. Now, if you would like, you can pause the video and try this on your own, and we will start this video up in about 5 seconds. Now that you've had some time to do this on your own, let's go through this together. So I know that Jeremiah made 17 out of 20 shots, so I'm going to divide 17 by 20. And just like in the last example, I'm going to add a couple zeros after my decimal point. And I know that 20 cannot go into 1, and it cannot go into 17, so I'm going to put a 0 up here and bring up my decimal. Now 20 can go into 170, and it can do this 8 times. 20 times 8 is 160. I'm going to have a remainder of 10. Now just like in our last example, we know that 20 cannot go into 10, so I'm going to bring down our 0 and change this 10 into a 100. Now 20 can go into 100 exactly 5 times. 20 times 5 is 100. And I no longer have a remainder. So I know that 17 over 20 is equivalent to 85 hundredths. Now if you remember from our last video, our second step is to find a hundredths place. So I know originally I have 85 100ths as my quotient, my answer to my division problem. And in order to turn this into a percentage, because remember a percentage is a fraction out of 100, I'm going to move my decimal point behind my hundredths place. So 1, 2. And I see that 85 100ths is equivalent to 85%.